That was incredible! That's how you do a 9 p.m. HBO style drop. Wow, trending #1 because it earned it. This is the type of show that you need to watch when it drops. Oh boy, and stay off Twitter because there's exciting stuff, popping up every few minutes. I mean, it was just fantastic. Seriously, we have reached Game of Thrones levels, not like the upper echelon, but we're in the space. With episode 4, though, I mean, one has to wonder if it's too little too late, especially after a whole bunch of mediocre Star Wars content. Also, and this is a vital also, does this episode mean as much to people who didn't watch or at least are familiar with Clone Wars and Rebels? I would guess not. I mean, it might still be, who could deny the beauty of this episode? But some of the reveals just aren't going to play the same. And I'm curious, if you are one of the people who is not at all familiar with Clone Wars and Rebels, how did the episode play to you? But to anyone who's a fan of the Filoniverse, baby, this was hot stuff. I watched Rebels, thanks to you guys insisting that I did. Again, thank you. I tried to pay it forward and, really warn a lot of you that you need to watch Rebels, and I think I pulled a couple people through with me. And then also I've seen a few episodes of Clone Wars as well, largely thanks to you guys. And I watched The Bad Batch, which I really like. But I was just blown away by this episode. It was incredible. And we'll break it all down in a second. But first, let's just bask in the glory of this episode. Anakin Skywalker returns right out of the Clone Wars as Ahsoka remembers him. Hold on to that thought. Sabine turns on Ahsoka and joins the enemy in the hopes of finding Ezra. Wow! Merrick is some kind of smoke monster, probably a smoke demon. I have my theories. But I told you, Game of Thrones vibes, sometimes blatant. R.I.P. Ray Stevenson, by the way. Incredible performance. Wow, we've been wondering where he was the last few episodes. He really stepped up this one. The hyperdrive jump. It didn't need to be that good, but I'm so glad it was. Lightsabers that look and sound like lightsabers. Oh, how we've missed you. And then droid on droid violence. Oh boy, and just as I said, a beautifully directed episode. And on that note, well, I'm real happy that Dave Filoni is trending as he wrote this episode as he did all the Ahsoka episodes, really engineering some tremendous payoffs. Although I would have told him to maybe move it up a little bit. I'd be like, your episode 4 is amazing. Let's make sure people are still watching by the time you get to it. But he's getting payoffs that he engineered through his decades of storytelling and animation, where, he got his start. But let's also give it up for director Peter Ramsey, who was one of the original Spider-Verse directors, and who, by the way, I recently interviewed for his series of African animated shorts, also on Disney+. So check that out. I'll put a link down below. And Peter Ramsey made a huge difference here. Oh my goodness, shot after shot after shot after shot after shot after shot of just amazing directing. Before I even realized it was Peter Ramsey, when the episode started, I was like, who's directing this? This thing's gorgeous. It was amazing. And the transition from the water to Ahsoka in the world between worlds, which I'll explain to you, beautiful. Also, the ambient noise when the episode started was just so perfect. It was hypnotic. You felt like you were there. And not just like you were there, but it gave you that sense of eerie quiet and vulnerability, just like our heroes. It also reminded me a little bit of a theme park, and I was having a great time. That was so good. Welcome to live action directing, Peter Ramsey. I think you're going to stick around. If I was any major franchise, I would even late at night, I would be like, call up Peter Ramsey's management and agent, whoever's representing him, and lock him down for whatever I'm working on. If Disney hasn't done it already. And they'd be nuts not to. I mean, they got an advance look at this. I'd be like, yoink, Peter Ramsey, you're with us now. And he did just do that Disney Plus series. And I continue to feel strongly that while I'm excited for Dave Filoni to write a Star Wars movie, I don't think he should direct it, with all due respect. Because quite frankly, the best Star Wars live-action episodes to date have been directed by other people. And while Filoni might get there one day, he might get to that same level, he's not going to do it by the time he needs to make his movie. He comes from a cartoon animation background, and you can see that in his live-action directing, I'm afraid. This is just a whole nother level. And it took Peter Ramsey to bring the gravitas that this show so desperately needed it, to make it what it could finally be. You know, they keep bringing in, it's interesting, both directors of color, Peter Ramsey, Rick Famuyiwa, they bring these guys in at the end when, you know, the seasons have already shed a lot of viewers, and it's frustrating because they're really delivering. Rick Famuyiwa is doing the season finale for Ahsoka. But I digress. Dave Filoni he directed the first episode for Ahsoka, and he directs the next episode. So you know episode 5 is going to be good because Filoni said, you know, speaking of yoinked it for himself. But when the end credits rolled for episode 4, again with the amazing score, which was amazing throughout the episode again, that's when I was like, we've reached Game of Thrones levels. And that same wonderful feeling of satisfaction washed over me, and excitement to talk about it. Oh, how we've thirsted to feel that sensation once more. And the credits should be at the front of the episode again, by the way. I mean, just to see what it does with Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, it sets the tone. They have credits in the beginning and the end. You put the big glitzy credits in the front, and then you put the other stuff. You know, there's 2 sections of credits as it is right now. Put the glossy ones up front, and then the other ones at the end, and you can still have the music playing when the episode ends to keep people in the mood. All right, let's break down the episode in order of awesomeness. So yeah, I'm thinking Anakin's back. Where the heck are they? Well, if you didn't watch Rebels, then you don't know. But this is the world between worlds, which was introduced in Star Wars Rebels, which Ezra entered through a secret door that Sabine unlocked in the Jedi Temple on Lothal, and then they sealed it again. Here, you can literally browse the timeline. And in Rebels, Ezra pulled Ahsoka out of her fight there against Darth Vader, aka Anakin, right before she was killed, therefore saving her life. And apparently no complete disregard for the timeline. Ahsoka wouldn't do that. In fact, Ahsoka kept him from going and finding Kanan. Darn it. So what is Anakin doing here? Is this where Force ghosts hang out? Or is he a construct of Ahsoka's mind? I'm kind of leaning in that direction, because he does, after all, look the way she remembers him, and Clone Wars fans remember him the fondest, thanks to a little de-aging. Hayden Christensen don't need no de-aging. But anyway, also Baylan was just talking about how Ahsoka is more like her master than she thinks, so she probably has Anakin on the brain. I mean, that was like a very bad evening for Ahsoka. You know, her Padawan betrayed her, it seems, yet again. She was, her whole, she thought she'd left the Jedi Order so that she'd somehow like corrected her path in life. And Baylan's like, you're just as big a loser as everybody else. You didn't accomplish anything. In fact, it seems that she is responsible for getting Sabine's family killed. I don't know why all this happened off camera. Maybe we'll have a flashback sequence, but that's really a shocker. The title of the episode is Fallen Jedi, and we are dealing with a whole lot of broken Jedi, like fallen angels in a way. But also, the title works on 2 levels because the whole order has fallen. The whole Jedi Order has fallen because of Order 66. So that's actually a really great poetic title. We'll see what happens next episode, where I suspect Ahsoka is having an out-of-body near-death experience. But however she's in the world between worlds, and however Anakin is manifesting himself, be it of his own will or if Ahsoka's doing it through her memories, it's a little bit like the astral plane for those of you who are X-Men fans. But here they can literally revisit their past, and there are doorways that you can, see through and reach through and go through if you'd like. And by the way, I'd love to know how Baylan knows Anakin. Maybe that'll be one of the things we explore. And Ahsoka, if she wanted to, speaking of the doorways, she could pull Anakin out of the timeline. And as I mentioned in a prior breakdown, maybe have a good Anakin walking around. But it would have to be right before he was killed. And even then, so much has happened, obviously, that she would destroy the timeline. Although maybe people who don't like the Disney trilogy would rejoice, but they're not going to do that. But it's interesting indeed. But I would like an answer as to whether or not that's actually Anakin or Ahsoka's psyche manifesting him. I'm guessing the latter. What do you think? And also, some of you might say, oh, I don't want to know. Ahsoka would never know for sure. But I feel like in a world where you do have Force ghosts, and you're supposed to believe that those are actually the individuals, their souls, and we'll talk about Merrick in a moment, and not just manifestations of the people who are seeing them, psychological manifestations. I think we need to clarify. Okay, next, all episode, Ahsoka kept asking Sabine, "Can I trust you?" And we got our answer, nope. Oh, and it was glorious. See, Ahsoka feels that if they don't get to Thrawn and Ezra first to control who comes back and who doesn't, heir to the Empire, by the way, Ahsoka used that line once again. I believe she used it before in The Mandalorian, and that's the title of the 1991 book that introduced Thrawn. So anytime someone says heir to the Empire, old school Star Wars fans go, ooh. So Ahsoka feels that if they can't get there first to decide who comes back and who doesn't, nobody should. So Ahsoka wants to destroy the map, as Morgan already has the means to get there. But Sabine, and I still can't get a read on what her relationship with Ezra is. Are they romantically involved, brother and sister? I kind of would like some clarification. But anyway, what do you think? Because you know, Balin's like, he's the only family you have left. I'm like, what about Zeb and Hera and everybody else? Well, I guess that's the only people who are left. But, you know, there's still some other people. I never really felt she and Ezra had that close of a bond in Rebels. I felt they never quite connected. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's interesting. You know, what could have been. Maybe that's the strong thing that's keeping them together. Oh, I like that. But anyway, Sabine just can't let go of the possibility of finding Ezra. So it was shocking when Sabine turned the orb back over to Baylan. But, I mean, it was great for the story. I was like, do it, do it. I was like the Emperor. I was like, let the evil grip you. And thankfully, Baylan is a gentleman whose word does mean something. He is truly a space knight. He reminds me a little bit of Ned Stark, by the way. So we'll see what happens to his character down the line. Ray Stevenson, again, R.I.P., rest in peace, such a tragic loss. But what an elegant performance he delivered here, with such great depth. He really brought the Game of Thrones vibe to this show. And you know, maybe George Lucas was right to hire so many older British area actors. Ray Stevenson hails from Ireland. But Game of Thrones uses a lot of actors from the same region, and I'm beginning to think that that's a very, very good idea. As for Sabine, it really makes you feel differently about her, don't you think? Since this is not her first betrayal. When someone's screaming at you who they are, listen. Remember, for those of you who don't know, in Rebels, as I told you before, she built a weapon for the Empire that was eventually used against her own people, the Mandalorians. I mean, sure, she kind of made good during Rebels, but I mean, as good as you can under the circumstances, right? There's really no totally coming back from that. But that past is there for her, and now she does it again? I mean, who's ever going to trust Sabine after this? I mean, I guess it would have to be Ahsoka, who also apparently isn't trustworthy. I mean, Ahsoka, speaking of history herself, has a hard time forgiving people, so pairing them up is kind of interesting in that regard as well. But again, it seems she betrayed Sabine by not listening to her and got Sabine's whole family killed, who we met in Rebels, and they were very nice people, a little intense, but nice. So maybe they'll feel they're even at this point. Trust really seems to be their main issue, interestingly enough. Although Sabine literally let Ahsoka fall in a trust fall. I'm like, wow, that was so bad. Then how about Merrick? You know, I take notes usually I don't take notes when I'm watching something. But when I want to do it in a really timely fashion, because I don't get it in advance, I do have to take some notes. So when Merrick got sliced, I only briefly saw it, and I literally said, whoa, out loud, and rewound. That's right, I rewound to see it again even before I found out he was made out of smoke. I just couldn't believe Merrick got taken out in episode 4, but it turns out he didn't. I don't think he's dead. Because it seems that he's not into bondage, but instead that's some kind of containment suit for his smoke body. And when Ahsoka ruptured it, he was dispersed, right? So what the heck is he, besides a very obvious nod to Game of Thrones? Well, there's something in Star Wars called a smoke demon, which Sith can summon, and I'm sure a witch like Morgan can as well. Did she finally do some witchcraft? By the way, she even has the same colors as Melisandre, come to think of it. So, again, it's very Game of Thrones, but I don't care, I loved it. I think there's a small chance, though, Merrick could also be a tormented soul. Maybe Starkiller, because Merrick and Galen Merrick are just way too similar. And Sam Witwer, who voiced the character, has refused to say what he's doing on Ahsoka. So I think it might be the ghost of Merrick, maybe, his soul. Either way, I'm sure that Morgan can summon back whatever he is. And oh boy, that means round 3 versus Ahsoka. Also, now that the secret is out, literally out of the bag, that he's a smoke demon or something maybe adjacent, Smoke demons have other cool abilities that he would then be able to use. So that would be great. By the way, did you notice Morgan pull a Dr. Evil when she left before the coordinates had been gotten, just assuming it was all going to go to plan? That was hilarious. And wow, that hyperdrive jump was incredible. I knew Hera brought a lot of red shirts with her. By the way, one of those red shirts is Brendan Wayne, one of the 2 stuntmen who brings the Mandalorian to life physically. So that was nice. Whenever they have cameos in Star Wars, you know, it might be a director or a writer or something like that. And speaking of the Mandalorian, it was nice to see Carson, who didn't die because he's not a red shirt. The build-up to the hyperdrive jump was fantastic, very Metropolis. I thought that was so cool. And the execution did not disappoint. It was so great. Hera is going to get a visit from Child Services. Although, seeing her and Jason in the cockpit together was right out of the final shot of them in Star Wars Rebels. So that was a nice nod. I also thought the lightsaber battles were the best we've seen on Disney+. Not quite movie level yet. The cameras are still too close. The shot's not long enough. I'm like, I know why you're jumping back and forth between the 2 fights, and that's because you're covering for the lack of fighting skill of your performers. I mean, they did all have stunt doubles, but they're still not where they need to be. But I think still, particularly for Disney+, this was excellent. And even though the fight choreography was lacking a scooch, I loved how the lightsabers actually flickered here. Like on Obi-Wan, they looked like giant glow sticks, but here they flickered, and the sound design was perfect. Loved it. Sabine versus Shin Hati, round 2. Again, Mandalorian or Jedi with Sabine. What the heck is wrong here? As soon as she realizes she needs to be both at the same time, she'll really be a force to be reckoned with. Ivana Sakno did a great job here, though, as her nemesis with some really spectacular line delivery, especially, "You have no power." And then the great Mandalorian punch in the face from Sabine is a response. That was great. Although I wonder, you know, there's such, I'm like, I don't know why Ahsoka isn't like, your self-doubt is clearly what is undercutting your Force abilities. Also, I liked when Shin Hati was cutting down the trees as they fought. That was great. Nice Kylo Ren nod. But I would have liked to have seen them pick the speed up on that a little bit and cut down a whole lot more trees in quick succession. That would have been much cooler. Then as for Ahsoka's 2 fights, her versus Merrick was a bit underwhelming at first. Another reason I was kind of not totally paying attention. And you still have not seen what an Inquisitor can really do in live action. If you've seen an Inquisitor in animation, you know they're much cooler. But I liked when he tried to overwhelm her with the twirling blades, making it almost hypnotic. But yet finally, Ahsoka's low energy paid off and she was able to literally cut through that. I guess there is some logic to Ahsoka's slow and steady calmness, but wow, it's tough to watch. I'm like, so boring, Ahsoka. I mean, the payoffs are nice, but can we pick up the pace just a little? I think that the show needs to compensate for that. And they did a little bit with this episode, which was good. I also didn't love her fight with Baylan, but oh, I loved the dialogue between the 2 of them. I didn't come here to talk about my past. Well, I'm here to secure the future. I was like, love it. Baylan had some great lines overall this episode. Fear versus experience, although I wonder if he's partially referring to maybe his experience with Anakin, right? And because he knows Ahsoka is Anakin's Padawan. And then also, when he said faith, I lost that a long time ago. What a great line for an episode called Fallen Jedi. Also, I appreciated the use of the Force during these fights, you know, moving stuff around. Although, why couldn't Ahsoka use the Force to move the orb earlier? I would have liked to have seen her to at least try, so we know that wouldn't work. I was like, just push that thing out of there. But she couldn't, which is why she had to go all Raiders on it. And listen to this epiphany. I bet the map is burned on her hand. So, Huang, get over here and read this. Oh, that would be such a great thing. And it's all Lucasfilm, so it's all good. I bet that's exactly what they did. Because, of course, Baylan destroyed the orb. Is it still readable if you just have the outside of it? Whatever, I'm excited. I bet that's the trick. On that note, but they don't have a hyperdrive, so I guess they're just gonna have to wait for them to come back. They know they're coming back. I guess that's, you know, but they don't have to come back to those exact coordinates, so interesting. I guess that's true. They don't have to follow them, so I guess it doesn't matter. So it's just, she's just gonna have a cool scar. And on that note, Huang versus that assassin droid. You know, I gotta say, I did love seeing them essentially box. I was like, oh wow, I wouldn't think that droids would go for such old school fighting technique. But I guess that's kind of what made it really interesting to see for a moment. But I was disappointed that a training droid like Huyang, who we saw training with Sabine just last episode, that he didn't have some better moves. I imagine he's coming to be like Star Wars' version of Alfred Pennyworth, in my opinion, and I love Alfred, and Alfred can hold his own in a fight, so I was like a scooch disappointed. And by the way, when the assassin droid covered Huyang's mouth, how was that effective? Doesn't he have other external speakers? Talk about a design flaw. He's a droid. He doesn't have to talk out of his mouth. I didn't get that. And also, would metal covering other metal, could it really make enough of a seal that the sound wouldn't come out? I didn't like that. So we have a pretty great episode 5 ahead of us. Ahsoka and Anakin, and what will the other characters find in the new galaxy? I guess that's another reason Sabine had to go with them, so that we had a hero on that journey. And for someone to look out for Ezra. So Ezra and Thrawn will obviously be there, but what does it look like? Is it just more space? I'm curious to see what they come up with. I mean, space, in Star Wars, it's usually just all, black with stars, but we've seen some amazing pictures of galaxies, and so it would be nice to maybe bring that to Star Wars. And now, what the heck is Hera gonna do? My assumption is go find Ahsoka's body, make sure she doesn't die, and be there when she wakes up. So what did you think of episode 4? Do you agree that this show is finally reaching Game of Thrones levels? And do you think the show can keep this up? Because Peter Ramsey isn't directing any more episodes. Rick Famuyiwa is returning for the finale, episode 8. But we have, so that means we got a couple episodes to go. I gotta tell you, I'm a little nervous. I mean, I'm glad Filoni, the fact that Filoni is directing the next episode, again, makes me feel it's gonna be a good one. But we know it won't be as visually stunning. All right, share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.